Hello Forsen, check this out. I know it's a clip, but no worries, it's safe. I swear my balls, Forsen flirt. Make an exception. If I make an exception, then I'll have to make more exceptions. Alright. No Twitch clips. Not Twitch clips. Can you wear the shark costume?
This is getting absolutely ridiculous. Over the past few months, a group of Japanese Minecraft players have been working in secret to construct a giant portrait of the VTuber Usada Pekara on the oldest Anarchy server in Minecraft. It is now, unironically, the largest handmade obsidian symbol in the server's history. It was built with at least 2.1 million blocks of obsidian, all in survival. If you put the build in a real life,
Forsen,
it would be massive enough
since you're
to
on the verge of curing my insomnia, I'd like to suggest a nice game that your viewers would love to play together also. Can you finish, Isaac, if you're not lazy?
If I'm not lazy.
cover a large portion of the city of Tokyo.
It's not about lazy.
This build
It's about the fact that you have to beat the same boss 20,000 times in order to unlock the next boss. That's not laziness on my part. That's bad game design.
has taken the record from the giant Owu, which was completed only a few weeks ago with 1.8.
The game is gay. The game is gay. The game is great, but it's just too much unnecessary fucking filler rounds necessary to unlock more stuff. Alright?
Million obsidian. Despite their visual similarities, the reason this portrait was built is completely different from the Owu, and the story is surprisingly inspirational. What started out as individual players struggling to survive ended up with a group uniting under one banner to not only succeed, but conquer. This is the story of the group that calls themselves the Japanese Army, and how an unexpected member of the 2B2T community became their ally, kept the group's existence a secret, and helped them survive long enough to leave their mark on the server forever. A build this massive didn't happen without betrayal and a few challenges to overcome. The fact that I'm a 31-year-old bald man that's making a full-length documentary about the construction of a 111-year-old half-human, half-rabbit, it's ridiculous, so you better be hitting that subscribe button. That's all I'm gonna say. Because of the language barrier and the fact that they weren't used to facing opponents with hacks, it was tough for some of them to survive. During this time, a 2B2T regular named City Boss noticed that many of them were struggling. He was one of the few English-speaking players to actually understand Japanese. He decided to change one of his alt accounts to the name of a popular Japanese VTuber, Usada Pekara. He did this in hopes of having some of the Japanese players reach out to him, and sure enough, it worked. A player named Usada, who was a massive fan of Pekara, reached out to City, and the two became friends. They decided to start a group together to help the rest of the new players survive. They gave themselves a simple name, the Japanese Army. Many of the new members were very inexperienced in Anarchy and could easily be tricked by the English-speaking players, so City knew he had to teach them the ways of Anarchy. He himself had joined 2B2T during the first YouTube invasion in 2016. He knew what it was like trying to survive in harsh conditions. He began teaching them some of the server's history, how to PvP, and how the community itself worked. Groups on 2B2T often target each other, so City knew he had to keep the Japanese army a secret from the rest of the player base in order to keep them safe. Once the group had enough members, it was proposed that a spawn base be built, and so they began working. 7-Eleven convenience stores are popular in Japan, so a joke was made that the name of the spawn base should be 7-Eleven Convince Base Project. And the name stuck. Construction was coming along and the group was getting valuable experience. City and Usada were impressed by how competent the group had become so quickly. They decided that a large-scale obsidian project was in order, as was tradition for 2B2T.
Okej gäng, har du den? Gäng importer ett stillestånd friends bort till YouTube. Av mina bästa friend fight oss lyssnande. Har ju den smiley face.
Alright. I mean, I'm done listening to it now, but I can have it in my tab. Yeah. Some of these are probably
in the first place. They were going to create a massive portrait of her that would take the record for largest man-made obsidian build on the entire server. Many members of the group had obtained dupe shulkers of obsidian and e-chests, so they had the resources to make it. Before revealing to the others what the build would be, it was discovered that a member of the group had been slacking off. Sicko6, or simply nicknamed Wolf by the Japanese community, did not help with any of the spawn base and annoyed much of the army. The group came to the consensus that he was to be kicked. He was exiled from the group, but of course, it wouldn't be the last time they saw him. After the design was finalized and the southeast quadrant was selected as the build location, construction of the Pekora began on February 18th. A giant obsidian battleship called the Yamato-sen was made as a base of operations that the group could use during the construction project. For 10 days, the build was slowly coming along, but on February 27th, a giant owu that had been built by a different group called the Watchmen was revealed to the public. This caused players to go looking for it. Some of them traveled in the wrong direction and stumbled upon the Pekora project instead. Most of the visitors were friendly, but a few attempted to grief. But luckily, the army was able to deal with them quite easily. The completion of the owu also revealed that 1.8 million obsidian was the current record that they had to beat, so in the end, they now had an advantage. It didn't take long for word to spread that an obsidian build of some kind was being made. Upon hearing this, the exiled Japanese player Wolf traveled to the southeast quadrant and found the Yamato-sen battleship. Since he had been kicked before the obsidian build had been revealed, he believed that the ship was the actual project the army was working on, and he attempted to grief it. Members of the army began defending it and tried to keep Wolf at bay for the next several days. Since he believed the ship was the true build, it acted as a decoy while others continued work on the Pekora. The ship had bought them valuable time. When Wolf finally realized that the ship was a decoy after a few days, the build was already around 90% completed. Realizing that he'd be unable to grief the build by himself, he attempted to stop the production of obsidian instead, which would slow down the build's completion. One of the army members, Sho, who had single-handedly placed 500,000 obsidian by himself, was AFK on top of the build. Wolf took advantage of this and managed to kill him. He stole 10 shulkers worth of ender chests that Sho had been carrying. 10 shulkers of each chest equals around 138,000 blocks of obsidian, which was a pretty big loss. City told the group to be on alert at all times and be ready for combat. The next time Wolf showed up, they were ready. They fought him with intensity, and Sho, who was angry over the loss of his obsidian, actually managed to take his revenge and kill Wolf. Surprisingly, he was still carrying 9 out of the 10 stolen shulkers, so now they had their obsidian back, and enough to finally complete the build. The group agreed, though, that once the build was completed, Wolf would be dealt with in a very special way. In early March, around 2 weeks after the start of the project, the giant Usada Pekora was finally completed. At 2.1 million obsidian, right? It had now taken the record of largest man-made obsidian structure on the entire server. But this victory wasn't enough. In their eyes, it wasn't just about winning. It was about making sure their opponent loses. Wolf had been spying on the group using an alt account named 9676. But the army was aware that this was actually Wolf, and used this to their advantage. They fixed up the Yamato-san ship and said they would hold a party to celebrate the completion of the Pekora. One of the activities planned would be a boat race, and all members were instructed to remove their items and sleep in a bed to set their respawn point. All of the group members played along and slept in the bed to convince Wolf that it was legitimate. Wolf took the bait and slept in the bed, after which he was instantly killed and bed trapped, forced to die in lava over and over and over again. On 2B2T, being bed trapped is considered one of the most humiliating things that can happen to someone. The fact that the army had managed to bed trap their greatest foe proved that they were now a true part of the 2b2t community. Enraged, Wolf went to social media such as Reddit and attempted to claim credit for building the Pekara, but he was quickly shut down by users telling the truth, that City and Usada were the true masterminds behind the project, and had rallied the Japanese players to make a permanent mark on the server. There are some parallels between how the army's Pekara was built and how the Watchmen built their Owu, but the biggest difference is that the Watchmen forced players to mine obsidian for them, but the Japanese army did not. It was all volunteers, working together to survive in a hostile land. It's actually a very inspirational story. I mean, as inspirational as it can be watching someone die in lava over and over and over, but hey, if you enjoyed today's video, you better hit that like and subscribe
button. It's only that character that is like soft locked, right? The alt one that they trapped. So like it's not it's like, and if it gets if they know it anyway, that character is kind of useless regardless. I guess it's just humiliating to fall for it, I guess, because they take it very serious.